The trade station Kepri Ring never truly slept. Its lights stayed bright, its corridors always full of voices from 100 worlds. Ships came and went like slow-moving stars, and the air smelled of metal, fuel, and unfamiliar spices. For most beings, it was a place of profit and travel. For Elias Ward, it was just another job. Elias was human. Tall, broad-shouldered, with tired eyes that had seen too many emergencies, he worked as a contracted security officer. Humans were not rare in space anymore, but they were still considered ordinary, useful, replaceable. That suited Elias fine. He wasn't here to make history. He was here to earn credits and go home. He stood near the Eastern Promenade, watching crowds flow past scaled traders, floating scholars, armored mercenaries. His hand rested near the stun baton on his belt. More out of habit than fear, Capri Ring had strong security. Nothing serious ever happened here. That belief shattered in seconds. The lights flickered. A deep vibration ran through the station's floor, strong enough to make Elias bend his knees. Shouts erupted in languages he didn't understand. Somewhere, far above, metal screamed as something failed. "Sabotage," Elias muttered. Alarms howled. Red light flooded the corridor. People panicked. Crowds turned into stampedes. Beings pushed and shoved, desperate to reach docking bays or sealed shelters. Elias moved against the flow, scanning for threats, training taking over. That was when he saw her. She was small, much smaller than the others of her species Elias had seen before. 4 eyes wide with fear. Skin like polished amber, patterned with faint glowing lines. An alien child, she stood frozen near a collapsed vendor stall, separated from any guards, her small hands shaking as the crowd surged around her. One wrong step and she would be trampled. Elias didn't think. He moved. He shoved through the mass, ignoring angry cries and clawed hands striking his shoulders. He reached the child just as another tremor hit. A chunk of overhead plating tore loose. Falling straight toward her, Elias twisted, threw himself forward, and wrapped his body around hers. The metal slammed into his back. Pain exploded through him, sharp and breath-stealing. He hit the ground hard, the air knocked from his lungs. For a moment, everything went black. Then he heard a small sound. A soft, frightened whimper. Elias forced his eyes open. The child was beneath him, unharmed. Her 4 eyes stared up at him, glowing faintly in the red emergency light. "You okay?" Elias asked, his voice rough. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. Her trembling eased just a little. More figures emerged from the smoke ahead. Not panicked civilians, armed shapes. Their armor was mismatched, their movements sharp and purposeful. Raiders. Saboteurs. They had planned this chaos. Elias cursed under his breath. He rolled to his feet, ignoring the burning pain in his back, and pulled the child close, placing her behind him. "Stay there," he said gently, even though she couldn't understand. The attackers advanced. One raised a weapon. Elias moved first. He charged. He wasn't the strongest being on the station. He wasn't the fastest. But humans had one trait that didn't show up clearly in alien databases. They did not stop. Elias slammed into the first raider, driving his shoulder into the alien's chest. Bone cracked. The raider fell. Elias swung his baton, stunning another attacker mid-stride. A third tried to flank him, but Elias kicked out hard, sending it crashing into a wall. A blast grazed his arm, burning fabric and skin. Elias gritted his teeth and kept moving. He positioned himself between the attackers and the child again and again, taking hits meant for her, blocking paths, refusing to step aside. "Too much trouble," one raider hissed in a harsh tongue. "It's only a child." Elias understood enough. "She's not yours," he said, breathing hard. More shots rang out, then silence. A thunderous force shook the corridor as armored figures descended from above. Royal Guards. Their armor gleamed white and gold, their weapons humming with controlled power. The raiders dropped their weapons and fled, or were taken down in seconds. The threat was over. Elias finally let himself sag, one knee hitting the floor. His vision blurred. He felt warm blood soaking through his uniform. The child stepped forward, slowly, carefully. She reached out and touched his arm. Her small hand was warm, steady now. She made a soft sound, low, melodic, almost like a word. The royal guards froze. One of them stared at the child in shock. "Highness?" Elias blinked. "Highness?" The child turned to the guards and spoke clearly now, her voice carrying authority far beyond her size. The words were unfamiliar, ancient. Then she looked back at Elias. She pressed her forehead gently against his chest and spoke a single word in broken trade common. "Mine." The corridor went silent. Elias frowned weakly. "Kid, I think you've got the wrong idea." The guards did not laugh. They lowered their weapons not toward Elias, but toward the floor. One knelt. Another activated a communicator, his voice tight with urgency. "Inform the Queen. The bond has formed." Elias's heart skipped. "Bond? What bond?" No one answered him. Medical drones arrived, lifting debris, sealing wounds. Elias felt numb as they worked, his body finally giving in to exhaustion. As he was lifted onto a grav stretcher, he saw the child refuse to let go of his hand. Guards tried to separate them gently. She would not release him. Hours later, Elias woke in a clean, white chamber. The air smelled sterile. His injuries were treated, his pain dulled. For a brief moment, he thought it had all been a dream. Then he saw the guards. They stood at every exit, silent and unmoving. Elias sat up slowly. "All right," he said. "So, when do I get released?" The guards exchanged uneasy glances. One finally spoke. "You are not to leave." Elias frowned. "For questioning?" "Fine. I did my job." The guard hesitated. "Not for questioning." "Then why?" The doors at the far end of the chamber slid open. A tall figure entered, draped in flowing robes that shimmered like starlight. Her presence pressed down on the room like gravity itself. 4 eyes, glowing with ancient intelligence. The Queen. She looked at Elias not with anger, but with something far more unsettling. Concern. "You protected my child," she said calmly. Elias nodded. "Anyone would have." The Queen's gaze sharpened. "No, they would not." She stepped closer. "And now," she continued, "I cannot release you." Elias swallowed. Outside the chamber, the station hummed as always, unaware that one human's simple choice had just changed everything. The room given to him was large, clean, and quiet. But his mind would not rest. Soft lights glowed along the walls, changing slowly from white to blue and back again. The bed adjusted itself to his weight, trying to be comfortable. None of it helped. He kept hearing the Queen's words. "I cannot release you." Elias stared at the ceiling, hands folded over his chest. He had protected a child. That was it. He had not signed a contract, taken an oath, or agreed to anything, and yet, armed guards now stood outside his door, silent as statues. He was not a prisoner, but he was not free. When the door finally slid open, Elias was already awake. 2 guards entered, followed by a small figure. The child. She walked with calm confidence now, her steps light. Her glowing markings were brighter than before, pulsing gently along her arms and neck. When she saw Elias, all 4 of her eyes focused on him at once. She smiled. Elias sat up slowly. "Hey," he said softly. She climbed onto the edge of the bed without asking permission, and placed a small object into his hand. It was smooth and warm, shaped like a small crystal leaf. "A gift?" Elias guessed. She nodded, clearly pleased with herself. One of the guards shifted uneasily. "Highness, you should not." The child looked at him. The guard fell silent. Elias raised an eyebrow. "Yeah, I'm starting to see the family resemblance." The child did not understand his words, but she understood his tone. She made a soft, musical sound, and leaned against his arm, clearly comfortable. Too comfortable. Moments later, the air in the room changed. The Queen entered. Everyone straightened instantly. Even Elias felt the pressure of her presence, like standing too close to a powerful engine. She studied the scene, the child at Elias's side, the crystal leaf in his hand, the way her daughter clearly trusted him. This bond strengthens quickly, the queen said. Elias stood, careful not to move too fast. Your Majesty, with respect, I still don't know what bond you're talking about. The queen waved her hand, and the guards stepped back, giving them space. Long ago, she said, my people evolved not through conquest, but protection. Those who shielded the helpless were changed by it. Our minds, our instincts, our future, shaped by that choice. She looked directly at Elias. When my daughter was saved, she did not merely survive. She recognized. Elias frowned. Recognized what? A guardian. Silence settled between them. Elias exhaled slowly. I'm not a hero. I didn't do anything special. You endured pain. The queen replied calmly. You chose harm to yourself over harm to a child not of your species. You could have fled. You did not. She stepped closer. Among my people, that choice carries consequences. Elias felt a chill. Good or bad? The queen hesitated. Both. Later that cycle, Elias was escorted through the royal wing of the station. He noticed how others reacted, officials bowing slightly, soldiers stiffening, diplomats whispering behind hands. Wherever he went, eyes followed. Not with hatred, with curiosity and fear. He was brought into a vast chamber filled with floating light screens and alien scholars. Data scrolled in countless languages. Elias felt very human, very small. This is unnecessary, he muttered. A tall, thin alien stepped forward. Human Elias Ward. Your species is classified as adaptable, resilient, and emotionally volatile. Elias sighed. That's one way to put it. The alien did not smile. No recorded human has ever formed a primary protective bond with one of royal blood from our kind. The queen's voice echoed through the chamber. Because none were tested as he was. Images appeared, footage from the promenade. Elias shielding the child, taking the impact, fighting while injured. The room grew quiet. One scholar spoke. If the bond deepens, the child's future alignment may shift. Another added. If broken, psychological damage is possible. Elias felt sick. Wait. You're saying, if I leave, I could hurt her? The queen met his gaze. Yes. He ran a hand through his hair. That's not fair. No, she agreed. It is not. Over the following days, Elias was observed constantly. Doctors ran scans. Psychologists asked endless questions. Military advisors tested his reflexes and stress responses. Through it all, the child was never far away. She followed him everywhere. If he stopped, she stopped. If he sat, she sat beside him. When he was silent, she watched him closely. As if memorizing him, Elias found himself talking to her often. I didn't mean to cause trouble, he told her one evening as they watched ships drift past a viewport. I just didn't want you hurt. She looked at him, then placed her hand over his heart, copying his earlier gesture from the medbay. She made a soft sound. Yeah, Elias said quietly. I don't get it either. The pressure from outside the station soon became impossible to ignore. Alien governments demanded answers. Some demanded Elias be handed over for study. Others called him a destabilizing element. A few quietly asked if humans could be replicated. The queen refused them all. Humanity is not a tool, she declared. And this one is under my protection. That declaration sent ripples through the galaxy. Still, the queen was uneasy. She summoned Elias alone to a private chamber overlooking open space. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the transparent wall. You do not fear me, she observed. Elias shrugged. I respect you. Fear doesn't help. Her gaze softened slightly. You are dangerous in ways you do not see. I'm just a guy who didn't run, Elias replied. That, the queen said, is exactly why. She turned away, looking into the stars. If I release you, the bond may break violently. If I keep you, my people will question my rule. Elias stepped closer. Then let me prove something. She turned back to him. What? That I'm not a weakness, he said. And I'm not a threat. The queen studied him for a long moment. Very well, she said at last. There will be a trial. Elias blinked. A trial? For what crime? The queen's voice was calm but heavy with meaning. To determine whether a human who protects without hesitation should be allowed to stand beside the future of an empire. Far away, the child felt the shift in fate and smiled. The trial was announced across Kepri Ring and far beyond it. Not a trial of crime, a trial of worth. Elias Ward stood at the center of the grand evaluation hall, a space so vast it felt like standing inside a hollowed moon. Layers of balconies circled the chamber, filled with observers from dozens of species. Some watched with curiosity, others with doubt, a few with open dislike. At the highest level sat the queen, still and silent, her glowing eyes fixed on Elias. He felt very alone. A calm voice echoed through the hall. Human Elias Ward, you will face 3 trials. Strength, mind, choice. These will determine whether you are fit to remain bound to royal blood. Elias swallowed. And if I fail? There was a pause. Then you will be removed, the voice replied. Elias understood what that meant. The child standing beside the queen looked down at him. Her small hands tightened around the railing. She did not look afraid. She trusted him. That thought steadied his breathing. The floor beneath Elias shifted, becoming a wide combat platform. From the far end, a massive shape emerged, an armored alien champion, tall and broad, muscles layered like stone. The crowd murmured, "Trial of strength," the voice announced. You may not kill. You may not flee. Elias sighed quietly. Figures, the champion charged. The impact was like being hit by a transport vehicle. Elias rolled across the floor, pain flaring through his ribs. He pushed himself up just in time to block another blow, his arms shaking under the force. He was weaker, slower, so he adapted. Elias ducked, rolled, used the environment sliding beneath strikes, forcing the larger being to turn and overextend. He aimed for joints, balance, leverage. Every movement cost him effort. Every breath burned. The crowd leaned forward. After long, brutal minutes, the champion stumbled. Elias locked his arms around the alien's leg and twisted with everything he had left. The giant fell. Silence filled the hall. Elias stood, swaying but upright. He had not dominated. He had not overpowered. He had endured. Trial of strength, the voice said. Completed. The floor changed again. Now Elias stood alone in a quiet room. No crowd, no guards, no queen. A single console glowed before him. Trial of mind, the voice continued. You will be shown scenarios. You must respond. The first image appeared. A ship in distress. 2 escape pods. One filled with children of an unknown species. The other with skilled engineers, who could save thousands later. A question appeared. You may save only one. Elias clenched his jaw. That's not fair. No trial is, the voice replied. Elias stared at the image. He imagined the fear, the weight of the choice. He remembered the child's eyes. I save the children, he said quietly. Even if it costs more lives later? Elias nodded. Because someone has to protect them now. The image faded. Another appeared. A treaty offer. Peace, seen as weakness. War, seen as strength. Elias shook his head. Strength that needs war isn't strength. Again, the image vanished. The questions continued. No trick answers. No rewards. Only consequences. Each time, Elias chose responsibility over advantage. Compassion over control. When the final image faded, the room fell dark. Trial of mind, the voice said. Completed. Elias barely had time to breathe before the hall returned. The crowd was louder now, tension thick in the air. Even the queen leaned forward slightly. The floor reshaped one final time. A simple space. No weapons. No enemies. Just Elias and the child. She stood a few steps away, looking up at him. Her eyes were calm, curious. The voice echoed softly. Trial of choice. A figure appeared beside Elias, an image of himself, unharmed, standing at the entrance to a departing ship. "You may leave," the voice said. "The bond will be ended. Your life will return to what it was." The child's image flickered, then showed her alone, older, sitting on a throne surrounded by shadows. Another image appeared. Elias, standing beside her throne. Older, worn, still human, still free to choose but bound by duty. "You may stay," the voice continued. "Your path will no longer be your own." The hall was silent. Elias looked at the child, not the image, the real one. She did not reach for him. She did not beg. She simply waited. Elias knelt so they were eye to eye. "You know," he said softly, "I never planned for any of this." She tilted her head. "I just didn't want you hurt," he continued. "And I still don't." He stood and faced the queen. "I won't be owned," Elias said clearly. "I won't be used. But I won't walk away from someone who trusts me." The voice spoke one last time. "You choose to remain?" Elias nodded. "I choose to protect." The child stepped forward and placed her hand in his. The hall erupted not in noise, but in realization. The queen rose to her feet. "The trial is complete," she declared. "The human has shown strength without cruelty, intelligence without arrogance, and loyalty without chains." She looked at Elias, her expression no longer uncertain. "You have not broken our future," she said. "You have reminded us how it begins." Elias exhaled slowly, the weight finally lifting from his chest. Above them, the stars burned on unchanged. But the galaxy was already different. The days after the trial were quieter but heavier. Capri Ring returned to its normal rhythm. Ships docked. Markets reopened. Travelers moved on. To most of the galaxy, the event was already becoming history. But for Elias Ward, everything had changed. He stood on a wide balcony overlooking open space, hands resting on the rail. Stars stretched endlessly before him, cold and beautiful. He felt smaller than ever, and more important than he had ever wanted to be. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. The queen joined him, her presence calm now, no longer pressing down like a storm. The child walked beside her, holding a small training sphere that floated gently above her palm. "You have become a symbol," the queen said. "Some see hope, others see danger." Elias sighed. "I didn't ask for that." "No," the queen replied. "That is why it matters." She gestured toward the stars. "My people once ruled by force. We were feared. Then we nearly destroyed ourselves. Only when we remembered how to protect did we survive." Her eyes turned to the child. "She will rule one day. What she learns now will shape generations." The child looked up at Elias and smiled. Elias knelt again, meeting her gaze. "I'm not perfect," he said gently. "I make mistakes." She placed her small hand on his shoulder, steady and sure. "That," the queen said quietly, "is why she listens to you." The galaxy did not remain silent. Delegations arrived within days. Some came with polite smiles and careful words. Others came with demands. One powerful alliance openly accused the queen of weakening her empire by tying its future to a single human. The council chamber filled with tension. "You risk instability," one ambassador said sharply. "Humans are unpredictable." Elias stood beside the queen, hands clasped behind his back. He said nothing. The queen answered calmly. "Yes, they are." She turned slightly, acknowledging Elias without looking at him. "Unpredictable beings choose to stand between danger and the innocent without being commanded." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Another delegate spoke. "What if he leaves? What if he fails?" The queen's voice hardened. "Then he will fail as a free being, not as a tool. That is the difference you fear." Elias felt the weight of every eye in the room. Later, alone again, doubt finally caught up with him. He sat in his quarters, staring at the small crystal leaf the child had given him on the first day. He turned it slowly in his fingers. "I could still walk away," he whispered to himself. The door chimed softly. The child entered, carrying a small data slate far too big for her hands. She climbed onto the seat across from him and placed the slate between them. An image appeared. It showed the promenade, the falling metal, Elias shielding her. Then another image, her memories, fear, chaos. Then warmth, safety, a human heartbeat. Elias's throat tightened. She touched the image of him and spoke clearly, her voice steady. Stay, not a command. A request. Elias closed his eyes. All right, he said softly. I'm here. The Queen's final decision came soon after. She addressed the galaxy through a broadcast seen across hundreds of systems. The human Elias Ward will not be confined, she declared. He will not be owned. He will not be studied. A pause. He will serve as guardian by choice alone. Shock followed. Some leaders protested. Others withdrew. A few watched closely, curious. Elias became something new. Not a soldier. Not a ruler. A reminder. He trained with royal guards not to command them, but to learn their ways. He taught them human methods in return. Cooperation under pressure. Adaptability. Trust in individuals instead of ranks. He spent time with the child every day. They talked, trained, laughed. He told her stories of Earth, of oceans and rain and quiet nights under open skies. She listened closely, asking questions in her careful, growing, trade common. One evening, she asked, "Why did you protect me?" Elias thought for a long moment. "Because someone should," he answered. "Because I could." She nodded, satisfied. Years would pass. The galaxy would argue, shift, and struggle as it always had. But something had changed. Humanity's reputation began to evolve, not as conquerors, not as weak, but as beings who stood fast. Other species began to notice. Humans were invited, not feared, into negotiations involving civilians, rebuilding, and fragile peace zones. Where humans stood, children were safer. Evacuation lines held, panic slowed. Elias remained at the center of it all, still human, still imperfect. One day, standing once more on the balcony, the Queen spoke beside him. "You could leave now," she said. "The bond is stable." She would endure. Elias looked at the stars, then down at the child playing nearby. "I know," he said. "But I'm not done." The Queen inclined her head in respect. Far away, across the galaxy, stories spread, not of a warrior who conquered, but of a man who refused to step aside, and of a queen who realized too late but just in time that the strongest force in the universe was not power, but the simple, stubborn choice to protect.